Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the WGLEU Season 2 for 2015 and 2016. It is Thursday evening for those of you struggling to keep track of things chronologically. My name is Mitch Leslie here with Oliver Maxfield, our second show of the week. And my friend, if our first was anything to go by on Tuesday night, we've got some intense action to come.
Yeah, I think Tuesday was probably the best match that we've had this season so far. Of course, the first game wasn't too great. Last game was pretty one-sided, but that middle game was an absolute cracker. Obviously, Oops managing to best the European favourite Kazakh 5-3. I mean, if you haven't watched that VOD, you have to go and watch it on /WGLEU on YouTube. It was just amazing.
Yeah, obviously, Oops actually rocketing towards the top of the scoreboard, but we'll check the standings in a little bit later first. A big hello to Melly down the end of the desk. You obviously were witnessing all the action alongside Oliver. And Kazakh falling, like we said, what an upset.
Yeah, absolutely. I really can't wait for... we talked about that last show. Like, the first half of the season was kind of calm. The teams were trying to set themselves within a table. And now in the second part of the league, when it comes down to who's going to go to finals, season finals, it's really rough stuff happening. So
exactly. I mean,
I can't wait. I can't wait.
The finals and the playoffs as well. So many things can happen during that point. Now, for those of you who didn't get to catch Tuesday night's games, I did. I tuned in right as Ollie was talking about mum spaghetti or some other ridiculous. Just let's have a look at the. What's that?
It's a lyric.
Is it really?
It's a lyric.
I had no idea. Let's have a look at the recap though and see what went down. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Week 6 of the WGLEU Season 1. Kazakh sit up the top, sitting fairly pretty, of course, with a bit of a blemish just before the break. They're losing to Tornado. They need to do enough damage to keep Rusty Roster from getting confident enough to push on towards that cap, and that is not the case here. Rusty Roster seemed pretty comfortable, jockeying back and forth, putting shot after shot in. And you can see Piotr, he took a shot in from Polswed now, so out of range, surrounded inside that middle cap. Look at all the red on that minimap. Rusty Roster have this canvassed out nicely, and now it's going to devolve in just a straight shooting gallery.
I mean, Kurloff for Formula 1 did a little bit of a bad job there against Figo and Doric. I mean, they took a lot of damage, and Rizik from the back as well starting to punish.
Yeah, he's hit, I think, at least 3 out of 4 of those shots here. So he's let his clip go. Quite a quick reload time there for the TVP, so he'll be back in, well, maybe 15 more seconds to do just that again. Then the firing time between shots is actually what's so filthy about that tank. It's just like, you may as well just take 1200 damage to the face and walk away, because that's exactly what is going to happen. Kerov has actually backed off that train line after Rusty Roster tried to respond by sending their own Batchat and M46 pattern there. But Kerov has got plenty of shots here. You can see the pattern can do that. He can roll over the top, he can get the hull down, and he can make the shot. Kerov not driving the kind of tank that has the gun depression to allow him to make a particular maneuver. So he actually has to commit to rolling over the top completely, but that's fine, because Rizik is, putting some damage towards Polsved, out of range. Look like they're just going to now be making a bit of a push from the south. It's Rusty Roster who split themselves up there, lined themselves up here.
I think this is going to be the end of him. Mursky is in the background though, so Penta do have to be careful of that.
Dreamlike's been caught with his pants down here. New Multishow just barreling in from the south. He'll get the finish on him easily enough. He has taken some damage, but now he has a Batchat hull in front for protection. And Mursky may not have much of that himself there as well. He's decided to stay up on the hill. He'll eat an extra shell there from New Multishow, but that Batchat now on reload, and an extra tank has moved up on towards the cap. All right, so maybe a little bit of a...
I was getting hyped for that.
Yeah, me too, dude. The last time we saw it was so sick. That was in the old format. The CDC, you can see it pulling forward. It does have a good fire rate. It's very, very fast, but it's a big tank. That's the problem. That's really the only weakness it has, and no armor, of course, on top of that here. So the CDC, you see, look where Raven has positioned himself.
How did it bounce that Conqueror shot?
I don't even know.
It's I mean, that's like hashtag World of Tanks. Like it's some of the
paper mache tank, bro. Yeah. It really is. But Raven has his turret positioned in that direction. I would have assumed to protect someone else with his hull after he died. We've seen it used on Himmelsdorf for that exact reason. But it looks like some other plans may be in the mix here for Penta Sports. Now, note their team. It's double Batchat, double 50B. Come in from behind. There might not even be a Crespix to fire at in a moment as he goes to the one shot. A New Multishow now with 3 shells in that Batchat. He's hitting a lot of damage per shot. Going to be very, very scary there. A bit of team kill, strangely enough, there. Vale getting taken out by the dead zones. He just poked up a little bit too far, but it doesn't look like Synergy have the capacity to punish PENTA for such a mistake.
I think Raging Potato could probably solo the whole of Synergy at this point in time.
Yeah, he's looking very, very healthy, especially compared to the rest of Synergy. Only 3 takes left for Synergy, and this is match point. They've squandered so many rounds in a row.
Unsupported, really. Oh, no, he's got a bit of support in the back from Bratty and Tarantula, but still, it's a straight line, and really, they can't provide that much.
I don't know, man. Wombats are now really starting to get involved here. I mean, still a lot of health on Knekelprod for the most part, and Bratty actually takes down his teammate, so that's brilliant. First of all, just absolutely brilliant. That's not what you want in this sort of situations.
Yeah, they have to push across because if they turn their turret one way, they're going to get shot from the other way.
Yep. Just not good, really. And this is what happens when you can surround an enemy team. But the Wombats now fancy a bit of a fight, and they might have done it just early. Going up on the hill, not really what they want to do here. Look at the damage. Look at the front-loaded burst coming from all these Batchats. This is Wombats really ticking it up to 11 here, and the damage is following. Look at Pat just getting completely burnt down. The burst fire is so real. Wombats putting all their eggs in the autoloader basket, so they need to make these first shots count. And so far, so good.
Yeah, those Batchats have done enough damage to really allow them to reload for the 35 seconds they have to. Because let's be honest here, KB also had a lot of auto-loading tanks.
Crux now just forced back. He's down to the one shot as well. And there's still some consistent fire to come from the Wombats, of course. They've got an STB of Kusok who can really be providing the damage in the interim. I mean, 5 auto-loading tanks is a bit dangerous for any team, but if you can make it stick early on, you're going to be golden. And so, ladies and gentlemen, time to finish things up here. Been an absolute pleasure to have you back with us, of course. We will see you on Tuesday. Lawrence should be back for that one, of course. Week 7 kicks off 7 p.m. Tuesday night. Be here or miss out on some awesome action. We'll see you then. Last Thursday's highlights. What we'll be doing is showing you the recap of Tuesday's games in the first break, so hang around for that one. The reason why we thought it was good to show this one actually is because 2 teams that featured in that one are actually playing up first here. So we'll have a look at the ladder and get an example of how things are sitting now before today's play. But more importantly as well, Wombats and PENTA, 2 teams that we actually looked at there as well, going to be playing yet again today. Let's see where they sit on the ladder, though, Oliver, as well. We got pretty much 6th and 7th place. They're right next to each other. Oops rocketing up towards the top side of things after their win against Kazza, and of course Tornado with a strong 5-0 shutout on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, PENTA Sports, I think it's a good team to kind of have a look at because, of course, last season they just about got into the pre-playoffs in 6th, and then they managed to go all the way to 2nd. They had that pretty interesting match versus Oops where they went 4-5. They lost that match in the tiebreaker on Murovanka, I believe. So they really want to be winning this next match. Of course, Wombats, on the other hand, had a really shaky game last week against Synergy, and then bounced back. And did very well against KB. So I'm not exactly sure what kind of form we'll be seeing Wombats in. In my opinion, they're just going to get stronger and stronger through the rest of this online phase and make good headway in towards the top 3 positions on that ranking.
So what we're looking to do tonight is actually complete that triangle between Synergy, PENTA and Wombats on tanks here. Because obviously Wombats on tanks having so much trouble with Synergy. We saw then Synergy get wrecked by PENTA. So we'll now have to see, I guess, what it is between Wombats and PENTA. And it's going to be interesting to see now whether it's a matter of inconsistency or maybe it's PENTA, for example, who were just with dominant performance here. Their strategies last week were very, very good. Remember them, like we saw in the recap, they snuck the CDC, the Tier 8 premium medium tank, on towards that northern cap on Ruinberg to provoke some sort of approach from Synergy. And they took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Fantastic stuff there. And you know, on Ruinberg as well, on the attacking side, you have to be innovative. It's safe to say that PENTA have continued to be just that, and I think that was a good example.
Yeah, I think so. I think PENTA is one of those teams who, if they get all the elements right in one match, they just seem to really perform. I think their biggest weakness this season is just being able to get those players all together and be playing on a really high level. I think their individual player skills sometimes been lacking, and their coordination. Some of their tactics also been a little bit odd, more in tune with some of the stuff we saw in 754. But yeah, I think this first game is probably going to be the highlight for today, along with maybe Synergy versus Ding. I think out of range after that win against Rusty Roster, looking like a good team finally. And KB, that loss against Wombats on tanks. Not sure exactly how that's going to affect them as a newer team.
All right, so that's your games for today. The other ones that are coming up, and of course, as per usual, we invite you guys to get involved with us on social media as well as via our votes for our games. Melly, of course, for the first match, plenty of ways people can get involved.
Absolutely. Head over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/WGLEU, and click on the very first link on our timeline, which forwards you directly to our voting app, where you simply have to choose your team favorite logo, and then predict the exact scoreline in the little text field below. Send it off, hope for the best, and if you're one of the 3 fastest to get the correct scoreline, even before the match starts, maybe, you might win a bonus code. Well, I would recommend getting in early in that vote. Of course, you have time until the 4th round is over, therefore second map. But I would actually hand in my prediction as soon as possible. Sometimes doing that is actually a better choice, since we already saw so many upsets. Just have a wild guess. Sometimes it works wonders. And the other way of getting involved is, of course, our Twitter channel. Use the hashtag WGLEU to tweet us, to tell us everything what's on your mind, what you, await from the matches, or, I don't know, maybe recommendations, what teams could have done better, for example, or even questions. I will get our experts to answer them. And of course, follow us at WGLEU for live updates during the matches.
There you go. Pretty straightforward, guys. And like I said, Melly, the sooner you get in with your vote, the more chance you have of winning. Even if it's maybe an obvious result, like a 5-0 for Tornado Rocks, if you're in the top 3 of the first people to get the votes in, you will get the code. Oliver, let's start to look at this one a little bit closer now, of course. Wombats and Tanks versus Penta. We did get to sit down and chat with some of these captains as well about their upcoming games, and we're going to cross now and see exactly what the Wombats on Tanks had to say about their upcoming match against Penta.
Penta is a very strong team, which surprised last season everyone by winning qualifiers and taking the 2nd place, so I hope our match will be exciting.
Short, sharp and shiny. What we generally expect to hear from Bishop. One of the most eloquent English speakers on the team, but even that, of course, he wouldn't be able to use that too often. So it's good to hear what he had to say there as well. Respect coming from Wombats for Penta.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are respectful of them. They actually put up a good fight in the season finals. Okay, it wasn't the most easy match for Penta. I think it was 7-2 to Wombats in the end. But just the fact that they managed to go all the way was impressive enough.
No doubt. And Penta are a team who know their opposition well, or at least they pride themselves on doing their homework and coming up with these strategies almost specifically catered to counter them. I'd love to hear what Penta have to say about this match.
Wombats, previous Virtus Pro. Our losing streak against them is like 100%, and in my eyes it's time to change this. They are right now one of the best teams in the world, so let's give the Wombats some shells to eat.
Surprised Hacker didn't reel off a list of all their dates of births, all their addresses, what they eat for breakfast. Well, he did say he was going to give them some cheese, I think is what he said. So.
They get some shells to eat. I think that's what
Shells to eat?
Shells to eat.
Oh,
like
as in tank shells.
Yeah, Wombats eat stuff.
Gotcha.
They can eat tank shells.
Surely Malin could cook up something better than tank shells for them, though.
I don't know.
Well, we're not so sure, actually. Well, the jury's out on that one. But there you go, of course. So both these two teams as well, healthy respect for each other. Penta definitely with an understanding that this is not a matchup that they are generally, historically, favoured in. Our first map, Oliver, is going to be Himmelsdorf to kick this one off here as well. A map where we saw Virtus Pro generally be quite consistently strong on.
Yep.
But Penta, this is good for them because it's such a solidly, frequently played map that you can surprise a team when you bring in some of these different strategies here. What's your take, I guess, on this one?
Well, Penta's got a lot of experience in Himmelsdorf. In Season 1, they played it a lot. In Season 2, they've started to play it a bit. Both teams have played about 4 to 6 times. Wombats with about 6 times, about 75% win ratio 4 times, and 50% for Penta. So I think they're fairly evenly matched, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 1-all scoreline. Of course, we always say the same about the Russian-speaking teams on Himmelsdorf. It's kind of where they perform. just because of the initial stages of World Tanks when they trained up against each other a lot, and still when they train against each other a lot. It seems to kind of suit their playstyle, but it's a balanced map these days, so the attack and the defense is not too dissimilar. So it's going to be a good match either way, and it certainly did prove to be probably the best map, at least best 2 rounds we saw when Oops and Kazna went up against each other on Tuesday.
Well, it's time to find out now. I can already tell that new multi-show's feeling fairly chirpy. Some nonsense about Nutella in chat. Most of it's Polish though, so I couldn't translate it directly. Let's see if he can really come out of his skin a little bit more as one player who has star status, but sometimes struggles to really make that felt on the battlefield. Karitz here as well is in the 1390. He actually hasn't opted to go up the hill here, which is, you know, we often see Karitz being the harassing force from that top of that castle, but so far Karitz setting up through mid has already got some spots here, and he has seen Penta heading towards this southern western corner in a fairly standard opening here, but Vale and Just Cause have found each other. Vale just going to be rolling on past where Just Cause does make that shot stick.
Definitely a gamble there from Just Cause. I mean, it definitely caught Penta by surprise and Vale by surprise, because it's really unusual that a tier 10 tank would go for such a peak, but he did manage to get away with it, and a nice beginning bit of damage towards Penta. Now, Vale going hull down, and of course Just Cause predicted that, and that's why he went there. Raging Potato receives a shell there from Breakneck, I believe, on the old hip shot. So Penta knows that Wombats is on the hill, and Wombats knows that Penta is all the way to the 1-3 line. But of course, the 1-3 line is definitely a more typical tactic. It's basically what every team has done this season so far on the defense side in Himmelsdorf.
So potential for subterfuge or any sneaky tactics being limited somewhat here by both teams getting a read on each other's positioning early on in the piece. It may well just come down to utter brute force. Didn't talk too much about the tank picks to start with. Both these teams, you know, with a couple FE215Bs in the mix there. An IS-4 for Bishop. I love him in one of those big hull down tanks. And a couple of bat chats as well here for Wombats, so leaving themselves open to many possibilities in terms of their picks. There's a double 50B for Penta though. Keep in mind that front loader damage is definitely going to be hurting, but Raven HR, he's the one to take damage first. He's a little bit caught out here. Despite Penta spotting Wombats in their move towards the hill, Raven still has to eat a shot as Wombats moved out.
Yeah, so the 50Bs from Penta Sports are definitely going to be where the main focus is for their damage. Of course, we've seen that double 50B stack work out quite a lot of times for the teams if they manage to get them into the right position behind the opposition. So Penta's very much aware that this is, you know, what Wombats was probably going to do, because they have set up all their tanks up north, apart from those two 50Bs, of course. MX 3090 capping. It's going to take them a long time. So, of course, when these 4 tanks push forwards, maybe with Killer Pit making it 5, they will be able to take their MX 3090 down pretty quick. And Povil on the hill, I mean, it's only one Batchat, not the most accurate tank in the world, definitely not easy in terms of gun handling. And Just Cause, the second Batchat as well, could cause issues for Wombats if they don't penetrate their shells.
Yeah, Just Cause can do a lot of damage on that D-line though as well, so just as well Penta are all pushing in from the top. But Oliver, they've given Wombats a long time to set up here for this standard defense. All they do, they sneak Karitz onto the cap and look at those side streets in the 7 and 8 lines. A lot of Wombats tanks are present here. Penta have to commit 100% to killing Karitz to get him off the cap, and they're going to take a lot of damage as a result. Already it's coming in from the hillside. That's a Batchat up there as well. I think of Pobble doing a bit of work. Just Cause can't really get involved too much right now, but initial shots are coming in heavily in favor of Wombats here. Penta, a little bit uncertain. They're all pushing forward here as well. They have at least gotten rid of Karitz, but look at the damage, Oliver, they've sustained.
To me, it seemed like Penta was really uncertain about that push, and it's caused them more damage than they necessarily had to take.
At the moment, only multi-show now. Those auto-loaders just firing at length. They're going to empty their clips, and they're going to have to back away after that one here. Do note the Raven HR is at a 5100 as well, so just extra front-loaded burst at least available. But Mayland super low after that. He took the brunt of the fire coming in from the Wombats. The health points still in the mix right now, but Wombats looking like they want to leave themselves flexible, and already Karitz has backed off towards their cap point number 1 to start things off. So Penta now fighting a battle on 2 sides. You can see Popple now just come off reload, and as a result, Raven HR will be turned to dust. Just these 4 tanks here for Wombats. They're very much at risk of being surrounded here. Oliver Coca-Cola wants to come around the side. The Dead Zone, though, wants to push forward. He must feel like a flank is imminent, but there's no one else with him right now. He's just painted a target on his own head, but Vale in the Dead Zone are going to fight back with a little bit of damage. Wombats, though, those initial fire, that first few salvos is going to give them that health point lead. Yeah,
I felt like the Dead Zone, I mean, the shot caller for Penta Sports kind of got frustrated with the whole situation then and knew what to do, but the rest of the team were a little bit slow to the chase. It's not game over. 4,000 damage to 3,500. But of course, those 50Bs are on reload.
That's right, Povl now, and Just Cause to receive new multi-show coming towards him, like you said, on reload. So are the bat chats. That's the way autoloaders work, except Just Cause, he was in between firing shots before, but he's ready to go yet again. The 110 E5 at Killer Pit hasn't really been a factor here at all in this round. He's been kept as a bit of an auxiliary, a bit of a reinforcement unit, but now he has to deal with 4 tanks, and they're all looking right at him. Just Cause's last shot won't make the difference there. Does bounce harmlessly off the front plate of the 110 E5, but Karitz now, he can come in from behind, do some damage. Coca-Cola has a nice little hull down spot in the FB215B there as well. You can't side scrape to a degree. Karitz takes a bit of damage, but Killer Pit doesn't really know who he should be shooting at, and to be fair, all of it doesn't really matter at this stage. 4v1, and I think Killer Pit, he's in the pit all right, and he's done.
It is going to be game over. It was game over already half a minute ago. Wombats do pick up the first round, so a very tentative and frankly unsure Penta Sports. We saw just at the beginning, they were pushing forwards. They were receiving damage pushing forwards. They weren't quick. They kind of half-peeked around the corner. Malin, for instance, the FE215B received a lot. And then they reversed back, received more damage from the bat jets, and then pushed forwards again and went around the hill. I think they lost probably like 2k damage there. What should have happened is that they should all just pushed around the corner, send the AMX 5100 first, so the first volley goes into that 5100. You know, you can put a 50B by in the 5100. It's a very tall tank.
Big body.
It's a big body, tall tank, big turret. You can go hull down. Okay, the 50B's turret's not particularly durable, but at least it'll be a harder tank to hit. And then you push around the corner. Those 2 bat chats have to come off the hill. They're suddenly a bit useless for, let's say, 30 seconds. In that 30 seconds, you can do a lot of damage, and that's where Penta Sports, I believe, lost it. And we did see them push around the corner, but it's just too late.
Well, and 1 tank as well was out in front. I think the dead zone, or something like that just decided to make the push, and that was fair enough. But it seemed as if the rest of those Penta tanks were a little bit concerned with the bat chats on the hill. There was an FV making a slower flank around the side of them as well. So maybe those decisions, while admirable and maybe correct, were a little bit too late in the piece. And you can see Povl, you said he's 1 tank up on that hill, not super accurate, just 1 autoloader, but this is what happens when Penta sit in the 1 spot. They didn't push around the corner, and they let Povl have an absolute field day. 14 shots fired. Now, on a bad chat, that's 3 clips worth of shots he's been able to get out, and you can see a lot of those have made their mark with 4.2k damage.
Yeah, very, very impressive stuff from Povl, and to be honest, both the bat chats there are on highest damage for Wombats, so I mean, I wouldn't have expected the bat chats to be so effective. I've seen a couple of bat shots on the Russian server not being so effective as that. And of course, you know, I guess it comes down to the fact that the bat chats can be on the hill very quickly. They can flank off. A lot of teams have been putting 50Bs in those positions because they're not that much slower than the bat chats. They have a faster reload. They've got better gun handling, all those kind of things. But of course, if you have players like Just Cause, they can, you know, mitigate the fact that the gun's not easy to use and be able to do more damage potentially than a 50B, and if you get the reload cycles perfectly correct. So Waffentrag have been picked up by Wombats here. We've seen that plenty of times before. Worked out well yesterday for Tornado, so let's see if it does for Wombats this time round. Yeah,
and notably, I guess, a 54 lightweight being picked up here for Penta, a throwback to our older formats here as well. That's Raging Potato, and be interesting to see how Penta use this one. It's not often that we see a tank like this really fulfill that spot. Sometimes, you know, teams will favour an autoloader. They like the 3090 in that position or something similar. However, that's what Raging Potato's got for now. He's not going to be able to hold up in a firefight, and oh my lord, it's Lorraine. I didn't even play that one. I skipped that one with free experience. Tier 9, French, medium. That's the first time it becomes a medium after the light at the 3090. What are your thoughts here, bringing that tank that I was told by veterans never to touch?
I mean, it's pretty bad. The thing is, it was actually okay when it was tier 8, but then you bump up to tier 9. Doesn't really become any better. It doesn't come any better, so it's just a tier higher, worse matchmaking. But it's big. It does a lot of damage, to be fair, and I guess the problem is it's just got like a 45-second reload. Raging Potato receives a lot as well, and not sure exactly why he peaked that second time around because the shots were pretty hard to hit. But when you're talking about APCR ammo on the FE215Bs, they will just go straight through the top of that T54 lightweight's turret.
So very interesting here that Wombats, they filled their 2 tier 9 slots in that particular way. We'll get onto that in a second after Raven HR stops copying an absolute beating. The IS-4, he's driving, it's just belting down that 8 line. And now Wombats, again, they know a lot. But Penta this time actually don't really know too much about where the Wombats are. Raging Potato died, or blew up, or whatever you want to call it. without really seeing the position of his assailants, really. He was lit and he copped a lot of damage as a result. And the amount of firepower, Oliver, that the Wombats have in reserve for when push comes to shove is frightening. They do have the Waffentrager E100. They still have Just Cause in the Batchat, a Conqueror for Kusok as well for a bit more durability. And that's the tank that's going to be holding on that corner next to the church.
Yeah, I mean, we saw PENTA, for instance, push around this corner without any Waffentrager. And we've seen a lot of teams on defense have the Waffentrager specifically for this push around the corner because they know that they can mitigate some of the early damage they will undoubtedly take by just having that big 560 damage 6-shell autoloader German tier 10 tank destroyer just blasting into the first few tanks. Put 1 or 2 shells onto each one, and it makes them a lot softer for the rest of your team. So I really like that pickup as Raven HR just gets an absolute beating.
Yeah, this is what I was saying about Just Cause. He knew, or at least Wombats knew, where PENTA were, and they can just encircle them. So much damage has already been done before PENTA have really made it a decisive move on the battlefield. They got into position, but Wombats were tracing them every second of the way. It's almost as if they have that X-ray vision. Kusok will finally go down there as well. The very back part of his tank, or the Conqueror, actually pokes out around that corner. It doesn't quite fit in that little niche perfectly. So he got tracked about 3 times before any damage actually started sticking. But I don't really know about that position really for the Conqueror. It's a little bit too long.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too long. I mean, you can get shot from the front if you go too far forwards. You get shot from the behind and get perma-tracked potentially by those 50Bs. Very accurate guns. But interestingly enough, Creeds are starting to creep up behind the new multi-show on the hill. But Multi's actually heading up the hill. I think Creeds, if he gets the first shell, might be able to, if he gets lucky, to get this kill.
Mighty Lorraine. Oh dear. First shot doesn't quite connect there as Multi was on the move there as well. You can see the Tier 9 doesn't hit very hard, and the 50B should be able to clean it up here with this last shot. So Creeds, unfortunately, not contributing in any great amount to the Wombat's success here, although he does keep the 50B busy. And he is on reload now as well. Just Cause will head his way up on towards the hill here, but PENTA, you can see, they actually now no longer have the capacity to go for a serious push towards that cap point number 2. The Waffentrager, E100 of Pobble is lurking close by, and they just have to back up and try and turtle up.
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing. I mean, the big thing is that they lost the hill because of that rain, and well, they've got the Batchat going up there, but Raven HR could go down. He does. I don't know why he's peeking that position. He should be staying safe because Breakneck is the best player on Wombats, and he does hit his shots.
He is damn good. And now he's going to get a few shots back in response here, but this is just giving time for the rest of Wombats to get in position. They have that D-line under wraps here, and you can see Vale getting double tapped as soon as he does cross over that street. Just Cause finally gets rid of new multi-show that was up on the hill off screen. Killerpit knows that crossing that street means he has to at least fire. PENTA think they've got Breakneck surrounded, but look at the cover that the Wombats have on that little corner. This is going to give Breakneck the freedom to take a shot towards Malin there. Just pokes his gun through the little break in the rubble. And PENTA have to go for something now as well. They're down by about 3k hit points. They want Breakneck at least, but they're going to pay for it with the round.
The thing is, if New Multi-Show stayed alive on the hill with the 50B, the positions which Coca-Cola, Bishop, and Povel in the middle are no longer viable because Multi can just shoot down and kill them all. But because he went down, thanks to Coca-Cola, it just turns the whole game on its, thanks to Just Cause, it turns the whole game on its head and makes Wombats very easy to kill those tanks that are pushing around the corner in the middle.
PENTA fans starting to wring their hands a little bit here, maybe even pulling out a couple tufts of hair, because right now, it seems like a far cry from their performance in recent times, of course, smashing Synergy 5-1 last week. Now, very unconvincing showing here against the Wombats. Himmelsdorf, to be fair, we haven't really seen it be a PENTA map, you know,
No.
like we want to see that up in lights. You know, that's not really the one that they rub their hands together in anticipation for, but we have seen instances of them playing quite well on this one, especially towards actually the Western cap. This time, seemed one-dimensional. Honestly, I mean, both sides of them seem pretty one-dimensional. Wasn't even a pick thing. It wasn't a matter of what tanks were being brought, I don't think, Oliver. Just indecision and lack of ability to make those tough calls when under fire.
I think it's just a motivation issue. I don't think they really cared about Himmelsdorf, just looking at the way they were playing then, pushing up the 8 line without any real information, or just even worse, actually with the information, knowing that Wombats were on the 1 to 3 line, still pushing across the middle, still receiving damage. And yeah, I think that was just like, okay, we want to get rid of Himmelsdorf. We don't want to play on it. We know Wombats are better. And we have seen quite a lot of teams do that with 768 when you don't necessarily lose a game when you lose a map. You can still come back convincingly on your own maps, but it does make it a little bit harder. And, you know, I think PENTA Sports definitely have to work on the Himmelsdorf as we go through these matches. So Breakneck, of course, in the FE215B on top. He's had a bit of a weak season so far, actually. I think he was actually 6th or 5th least damage dealt player for Wombats, but of course they've only played 4 games and most other teams are on 7 games, so they've still got a few to catch up with. Coca-Cola, Pavel Bishop, next in line.
So you can see here as well, when you do have 4 players in the top 4, it says a lot about the way the game was played out, Oliver. Didn't see anything crazy. No one was really reinventing the wheel or the track, as it were. It definitely seemed a case of, the Wombats on tanks hitting their shots, or at least being in good situations to facilitate more than one tank to fire at once and not receive so much damage back. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of tanks can be factored down to a war of attrition when you've got 2 teams going head-to-head. It's all about doing more damage than the other team and taking less. And that's exactly what, well, a good team will be able to set up. You set up a situation where you can have 2 tanks firing, and the enemy can only maybe fire at 1. You use your angles correctly. You can see, I have to say, Breakneck using that terrain really, really well. He knew he had a flank situation. He was wise enough to know when to pull back or to come forward. And even when he was being pressured by 4 other tanks, he was able to hold them at bay long enough for the rest of his team to actually cover him and get free damage because they were so tunneled in on that particular tank of Breakneck. They're simple as you like. And Penta, it looks like they're... I'm not really sure. There's like a carrot in front of him right now, but it's not leading him the right direction. It seems like they're a little bit jumpy at the moment and making some pretty interesting decisions considering what we've seen from them in the past. But as you said, Oliver, we're done now with Himmelsdorf. Ruinberg will be our next map.
Yeah, I'm going to move on to Ruinberg. Typically defensive map, so maybe 3-1 is realistic here. Have seen Wombats lose both rounds on this map, though, so and that was against, I believe, Ding.
Synergy.
Ding or Synergy, one of those 2, and I think it was actually Synergy, yeah. So, I mean, potentially for Wombats to come back, Penta to come back, and I've seen a lot of good tactics from Penta. The last time they played this map, they also won their 2 rounds in a row, the attack and the defense, which is, of course, impressive. So, potential, as I said, Penta to bring this to all, and they seem to have the kind of mentality on Ruinberg to provide that really interesting, dynamic, new kind of tactic on the attack, which you often need to win.
Speaking of new, I wouldn't say Wombats' lineup is very new at all. It actually reminds me a lot of what we used to see in 754. 3 IS-7s, 2 T-54s in the mix. One of my favourite tanks in the game. The one absolutely stunning T9 Russian medium. Big brother of the lightweight, of course, no surprises there. Obviously, Ruinberg is that kind of map where you do need a little bit of stroke of brilliance on the attacking side to get convincing wins there. And Wombats, they're first up to the plate here as well. You said, Oliver, likely a 3-1 here, given how defensively biased this map still is somewhat. Let's see what Wombats have got in store.
For me, if I was Penta, I would just be thinking, okay, so 3 I7s, that's just a normal push through the middle. Bat chats and Object 140 is probably... I mean, anywhere, they can go anywhere at this point in time, and in the T-54s, it looks like a zero-line push because they could hold down. So if I was Penta, I'd be thinking immediately, like, the right side cap, number 2 cap, is the most likely one where Wombats are going to go. But we saw then the dead zone, Raging Potato even, just pushing straight through the middle, spotted the IS-7, didn't spot anyone else. So looks to me like Wombats are more saying, okay, where are Penta and where are they not, more importantly, and then making a decision of which direction they want to head.
Not a lot of blood, in fact not at all, has been drawn here early on as the Wombats, like you said, are just posturing here, trying to gain some information and passively gaining it perhaps with some of these blind shots and hoping that they can flush out some of Penta's defensive structure or some of those tanks away from those buildings and at least get them out in the open. But it doesn't look like they've gained too much knowledge here really, as Penta are actually with a fairly standard setup here. They actually don't have anything up towards A6, which is actually where Karitz was blind firing early on. That's the expected location. Instead, they actually have quite a close-up presence on that cap point number 1. New multi-show, the tank in question right now. He's very, very close. Look at this. B4. Not normally we see players or tanks sit this close up to that cap, especially less to the enemy team might bring their entire team straight towards the north and go for some sort of push. But they're not. In fact, quite the opposite. Heading towards the southeast of the map. They want to come in from the south side here. But they have a little bit of housework to be doing first, Oliver. There is a strong presence for Penta set up in towards that village on the east, as usual. And Raging Potato, fairly far forward in this 251, should be able to get some spots if they get too much closer. Yeah, and the Batjets will immediately head round to the south. I mean, that's what the Batjets are there for. Penta's thinking, okay, it's quite unlikely that they come this direction. They got a 50B just to provide good support. Okay, they got nothing in A7, so that could potentially be a problem. So the Batjets will just flank around if Raging Potato finds anything. But they have got quite far up. I mean, they got to the 0 line before the I7s were spotted. And let's see what those Batjets do. They are starting to group together.
And it might just be the trump card here for Penta Sports, but let's see if Wombats can get a good lead before that happens.
Yeah, a bit surprising to see Rage Potato go for another peek there as well. He's in a little bit of danger given his position, but he's given a lot of information back about the positioning of those two IS-7s. Penta also don't have any control of the bottom right corner of the map, which is where defending teams normally completely scuttle attacking strategies. Instead, it's actually a Virtus Pro tank up there, but Pavel has to unfortunately lumber slowly over towards his cap to start things off, but he's taken a bit of damage. He was hoping for some hull down, but you can see Rage Potato probably didn't want to go down there. I mean, he has gained a lot of information, but he'd love to stay and be a threat and be a nuisance there. But here comes Wombats, not looking like an overly inspired strategy towards his cap, but they've set up with the big bodies, and they're going to try and cap out from here.
Yeah, very forward push from Wombats there with Pavel on his own. Pretty lucky to take down Raging Potato. I felt like that hip shot, that really quick snapshot from Pavel was going to miss, but Breakneck now caught out in the middle.
And he has to give up this position as well, which is a very, very powerful one for an attacking side. With Mayland now up in this corner, if he doesn't die, he can reset those tanks over and over and over again. You can see he's looking straight towards him. That was the reset. That's all he has to do. The only risk for Mayland, really, is to take fire from the other tanks of the Wombats. But Penta have gotten themselves a 2k hit point lead, and they're just sitting back on this one. Coca-Cola cleverly challenges Mayland, but look at the shots coming in. He's not going to get the 1v1 here. Perfect cover from Penta. They keep this corner with a Penta flag slammed straight in the middle of it there. Mayland is able to take that 1v1 with the help of his team. Wombats knew they had to dig Mayland out. Now that he's alive, he'll continue to reset those IS-7s.
Killer Pit and Mayland are doing a very good job of keeping that 8-0 line basically covered off, which means that New Multi-Show and Vale can actually peek and get the resets.
Perfect stuff there. Really, it's the cover from the middle of the map, that village from Penta, that has given them this round. Keeping Mayland alive was absolutely essential. He's dead now, of course, but the Wombats already have no chance of getting the reset. They got reset too many times. They have no chance of getting the cap, should I say, and they have to try and brawl this out. With 3 tanks up against 5, Breakneck about to get completely wrecked here. Only a one shot for the man. Wombats don't have the pieces that they need to take this territory.
No, they don't even have the HP anymore. I mean, it's double HP for Penta Sports at this time in this point in time. So let's see if Karitz can do anything. His gunner's actually out, so he's on his own in a T-54. A bit of support there from the Object 140, who's only really the only healthy one here, Just Cause, but he also gets chunked down quite a lot. So yeah, Penta Sports just going to clean up in the next couple of minutes, let's say. And they are taking their time. They want to walk into 3 Wombats tanks without making sure they got their T's crossed and their I's dotted.
Absolutely. New Multi comes around the corner. He has just enough shots to take care of Karitz, and he does. There'll be a little bit of damage back in response from Breakneck, but at the moment, it's really just decoration for his tank because the round is all but won here for Penta. It's just a matter now of encircling those last 2 tanks and dispatching them. Just Cause there as well. He's up against the wall, and Penta will get their first round here, Oliver. Definitely hasn't seemed like, as I said, a very inspired strategy at all coming from the Wombats on tanks.
No, I think Penta as well, they just went aggressive down that 0 line straight away, and they didn't give Wombats any kind of opening. I feel like Pavel's had a pretty bad season so far, and just pushing out on his own, probably not expecting to receive as much damage as he did from the FA215Bs and the RU251 of Raging Potato, but of course he did, and yeah, 633 HP just before the cap has even started. It felt to me like that indecision of Penta on that first map on Himmelsdorf translated to Wombats on that last round on Ruinberg.
Yeah, it's almost as if they didn't have a lot planned for it, nothing over the top. It's almost like they approached this map going, well, this is a 1-1. So if we get a lead in the first map, then who cares? You know what I mean? I mean, they had some blind shots in towards the north. We saw Karitz looking for something there, but there was all the general spots. And Penta, clever on this map generally. This is one of the map where they've showed us some of their greatest strategical brilliance. Have said, well, we're not going to sit in these normal spots. We're going to push New Multi-Show right up close in that bat chat, and he'll be the first to spot anything coming from that street. And to be fair, he could probably do a lot of damage to those enemy tanks first off. Do you think if Wombats had actually gone towards that northern cap, would they have had the advantage given that Penta would put their tanks so far away from cover on towards point number 1?
Well, it depends how much damage the bat jets would have done, and I think if they took down the bat jets quickly enough or managed to get a track onto them, double track, perma track, then they could have been a potential win there because they would have had that northern cap under control. They would have sent a tank into A6, get control of that, and then they can get the cap underway and then make it very hard for Penta Sports to actually get the reset. So yeah, I mean, it was a potential. But those bat jets are very fast. They would have been able to get good spots, and they might have been able to do a lot of damage before scampering away quickly. So, yeah, Vale was in the one in the middle along that F road. just peeking out with the FE215B, decent gun depression, got a lot of good damage across, and Raven HR as well. So, yeah, as you would expect on the defensive side, basically all Penta sports. And Breakneck did a little bit of damage at the end, but let's take 800 of that away, considering it was already, you know, a game one for Penta.
So, I mean, talking about that as well, you see Mayland was featuring there at about 4th on the damage countback. His position was very, very important. That bottom corner of this map can make or break it for whatever team actually has hold of it. And you can see so much so that the Wombats were willing to commit a full tank, another 140, I think, to that position to try and kill Mayland. And it would have worked out. In theory, it would have worked out. Here's your tank picks, though, of course, and I have a Waffentrager E100 here for Penta. I have to wonder if there's anything sneaky up their sleeve, because triple Batchat is a bit of an interesting pick, Ollie.
I mean, it's a full stop interesting pick. Okay, the STBs may be a little bit normal, but even then, it's like, okay, not that many teams bring a couple of STBs on this map. But Waffentrager Alpha E100, it's a great 1v1 tank. It's great at just getting its clip out, softening up some targets and letting the rest of them do it. The rest of the team chime in, and with all those other autoloaders there, it kind of makes sense. You know, you can get a couple of shots from Waffentrager Alpha 100, then you can just shoot with the Batchat, so you can get a tier 10 tank down very, very quickly indeed. So I think this is going to be a sneaky tactic here from Penta. You can see them filtering up from the southern side of this map. STB is going to go hull down, of course. And the Batchat's interestingly enough, and Raging Potato going into the cap.
What's the... Okay, I don't really know what the game is here for Penta, but we're going to have to find out one way or another, ladies and gents, as the dead zone. He will be first up to the plate, probably having drawn the short straw, I'd say, to try and get some information on where Wombats are set up. He probably has a good idea of where they are, and they are obviously set up in that standard village location. Now, Wombats have a tank right up towards the top of the map. The IS-4 can't do too much right now, but they're going to get this cap with 3 tanks here, so they're going to force a response here from Wombats. And Ollie, are they just hoping that Wombats try and brawl them and they just can nuke down a tier 10 quickly?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the STBs for the fire from the south, the Batchat's in the middle for the burst damage, and the Waffentrager Alpha 100 is kind of a joker that springs up when Wombats doesn't expect it.
Oh my. Where's the reset? There it is. Finally came in there. I was wondering when it would happen. They are going to be able to nuke down Just Cause, but the dead zone takes a fair bit of damage himself, and he wants to hunt down that Batchat, but Garix is going to be standing in his way. They're going to be more than happy to go through him as well. A lot of damage from these Batchats. They managed to at least get their clips out, and Garix may well fall here from this shot. If it's HG, he does. New Multishow picks up 2 kills there as well. Wombats still with a bit of a health point advantage, but they are lacking that one tank here. Wombats only have 5. Pobble is very, very low as well. The 50B is going to be very, very important to have later on into this round. And Coca-Cola now as well, staunchly picking a fight with these 2 STBs.
Yeah, I mean, they got the HP advantage, but then they got all the heavy tanks as well, so it kind of evens itself out. I'd say this is a pretty even game, but these STBs are just not particularly great hull down. I mean, you can penetrate almost every angle of the turret. Okay, the front part might be a bit weak, but Penta needs to put pressure on Coca-Cola. They need to put pressure on Breakneck if they want to win this game still.
Breakneck just wants to join Coca-Cola here, come from the same angle and just apply some pressure towards those Penta tanks. It's Killer Pit now with only 2 shots left, and he surely isn't thinking about capping right now, but he might not even be able to get away from there. Penta look to be capitulating here in the final moments of this round, as Breakneck will be encroaching towards Mayland. He wants that last shot, and he'll definitely have it there. The STB will be one, not the most armored tank. It's a 4v5. Wombats now have the numbers. They have the health points as well. There's a finish from New Multishow. He's able to bring it back at least with Coca-Cola in the distance. Put a shot in towards him. Only a couple more, and New Multishow will be nothing but a pile of rubble. And Raven is on reload, and he is down as well. He's about as useful alive as dead when he's got no shots to fire.
Yeah, this is game over, surely. Wombats are quite far ahead. They got 3 versus 4. Breakneck and Bishop are both pretty healthy in this game, and Batchat is reloading. Killer Pit's off reload, but he's a one-shot, so if he peeks, he'll only realistically get 2 shells out at the very best.
As kills are coming in now pretty quickly. You can see the feed up the bottom there. It's all red, killing blue, and it's New Multishow now just to sit back in that corner. He's still on reload, and there's not much he can do now as he is circled, and he will be torn to pieces by the savage Wombats. I've never known Wombats to be so aggressive, but perhaps in this case they are. It's going to be a 3-1. Wombats in the lead here. Still, after the 1-1 map, we kind of called it. Last week, we started to doubt ourselves, saying maybe Ruinberg's not such a 1-1 map after all. Maybe we're just stuck in the 754 format, but it is.
Yeah.
Everything is right with the world, obviously. Neither of these 2 teams able to come up with sufficient attacking strategies.
Yeah, I think Penta got very close then. I felt like it was their game for a while, but, I mean, they kind of had that initial strategy of pushing in the cap work very well. You can see there, the Batchat got taken down, but then the dead zone, I think, went forwards with the RU251 Raging Potato, and then he went down, They had a kind of a 5-second window where Wombats started to get it in terms of damage, and they received a lot in that window. And then the Waffentrager came forwards, couldn't really do much. They peaked against Kusok, which was probably the wrong idea, considering to kill him, they had to expose themselves completely. It's so easy to shoot that Waffentrager Alpha E100. I felt like Penta, with the SDBs, should have probably had to commit to the Batchat and the RU251, but then should have got the Batchats up towards the SDBs, helped them out, and then they might have been able to win the game that way. But it was so hard. I mean, you have to understand, you have such a better position on defensive Ruinberg that you can just shoot down, you can peek, you can do whatever you want. But surely Bishop, in that FE215E, pushing the 0 line, was really what won them the game.
Well, I mean, absolutely. You can see actually the damage count here. He had 4K, the rest of his team averaging maybe 2. I mean, Breakneck and Povil were there. So, you know, that's pretty straightforward. I think, and he was in that pivotal spot, like you said. He was in the village. He had that advantage. He was able to assist as well. Breakneck, who was in the FE215B, he was challenging those 2 STV1s there that were trying to set up to maybe keep things quiet from any sort of responsive forces in that village on the eastern side. But there you have it. That's pretty much sums things up here as well as we head further down that damage list. And I mean, here it is, 3-1 for Wombats on tanks. We're going to be moving on to Murovanka now here, Oliver. What's your take between these two teams?
Well, we've seen Penta play a lot more than Wombats, and not particularly successfully. They've got about 28% win ratio. Wombats haven't won a single round, but they've only played it a couple of times. So not much to read into it in terms of Wombats. I think they can still be a good team, but Penta Sports, on the other hand, pretty weak indeed. So I think for them, they want to be getting a good defensive round on the board at least if they want to stay in this game. Well, they have to be honest. If Wombats win the next 2 rounds, it's going to be game over for Penta. So on the easier side of Murovanka, definitely the defensive side, I think they have to win. We've seen, for instance, Penta try to be very aggressive on the attack, pushing through that Magic Forest, just pushing straight forwards, and being pretty unsuccessful at it as well.
Melly, hello.
Hi.
Penta obviously on the precipice here of going down in probably not a great way considering, you know, what we've seen from them so far this season. Surely people would be putting their votes behind Wombats and Tanks initially, but we know Penta have a lot of fans. Where does their vote sit right now?
On 53%, surprisingly somehow. But as you said, Penta showed great performance throughout the season so far. And even Wombats on Tanks said themselves on Twitter that this match is going to be really, really hard. But currently it looks like a walk in the park, more or less. 3-1 ahead. Well, let's see how the other maps go. But it seems like people at home can't decide where to put their money on. It's very balanced, the vote, as mentioned before, 53% for Wombats on Tanks, which is a fairly low voting results.
In terms of score?
Exactly. No. In terms of percentage, because usually when it comes to Wombat on Tanks, the numbers are much higher.
But it's Penta. I mean, I've even got like Dave Tomley, a regular viewer, saying, come on, Penta, show up and justify our faith here. So, you know, a lot of people put their side behind him.
So, a lot of 5-3s.
We'll have to see how Muro plays out here.
I think a 5-3 is possible. I think
very few
Penta seems like that
overmatch.
team, which they did it last year as well. They started on mines. They were really bad at it. They lost everything, basically. But they continued at it, and then they became one of the better teams in the later part of the season in the pre-playoffs as well. So it could be what Murovanka is for them this season.
Absolutely, and there's where routine shows, right? It's a known team. It's a very experienced team. And if someone can pull themselves together after like being behind 3-1, it's Penta Sports, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've heard it here, not only from us, but from yourselves as well. So some faith still in Penta Sports here. We'll have to see if they've got what it takes. Obviously, Murovanka is going to be our next map. And like we've said, we've seen interesting plays, both on attack and defensive sides so far this season, showing itself to have some balance there as well between the two. And it all comes down to which team goes for that cheese at just the right time, or which team sort of crumbles under the pressure. We're about to find out here, guys, as we are loading into this one. Here are your picks as well. Just the one TVP here for Wombats, 2 for Penta, and the rest of the rosters as such.
Yeah, so Wombats and Tanks with a pretty light lineup. I feel like they kind of treat Steps and Murovanka as a pretty similar map, and it is, to be honest, in some ways. But interestingly enough, Penta have only got one FE215B. We've seen, for instance, a lot of teams pick two T110E5s and not go for that FE215B at all. So let's see how they use that one, if they're going to be going aggressive like they have done in the past, and those TVPs do suggest that's what they want to do at some point in time. So my guess would be that Penta goes towards cap number 1, puts the FE215B hull down somewhere, has the fastest tanks going on the flank. And for me, it looks like Wombats just seem to have an attacking lineup. There's no reason why they shouldn't have a T110E5.
Yeah, they're eschewing the defensive and hull down capabilities of that tank for a little bit more aggression. Let's see if it pays out, if Wombats maybe want to play more of a reactive, aggressive style of play. We can see Koritz here sitting pretty in the bush. He's in a position where he can spot anything happening towards that capture point number 2, but he is in a location that is commonly subject to blind fire, which is what Penta would want to do if they're going to go in that direction. You can see Wombats here. Look at how they're skirting towards the edge of the map here, really not wanting to be spotted early. Problem here is that if Penta actually have the cojones to push forward, it's going to be a little bit tricky here for Wombats to shake them off this cap, especially if there's a bit of support here on this hill.
Yeah, so Killipit's going to peek. I mean, he's not got too much to worry about, and you can see Vela's going to go forwards. I thought he was just going to go around the corner in the cap. Only Povel in that position, and Breakneck actually in behind. Vale does go forwards. Not sure exactly why he went so late, because of the STB shot. Makes sense for him to go as soon as possible, but gets it done. And this is very Penta-esque. We saw them winning one round on Murovanka with this exact same tactic. Put the Batchat in the cap, have good support from the background, make sure that the other team can't flank through the middle. That's what the Batchat is doing in C6 and the RU251 in D78.
You can see the Penta are not applying as much pressure as they maybe could. I mean, we can see the minimap and they can't, but the Wombats are making a very, very slow rotation, very much around the outskirts of the map. You can see Koritz is leading the charge here, all the way towards H8, H9 should I say. For what reason, I'm not really sure. I guess they might want to try and push through in towards the middle here, but they've left their defenses very, very light on over towards a capture point number 1. But I guess, Oliver, if you're playing such an aggressive sort of lineup, I guess you need to push together and just try and eliminate the enemy in a short space of time. Penta, again, seeing very, very little. Killipit knows he's being spotted. He can probably assume that it is Povel that keeps him lit. But that's all the information that Penta have. They're going to get a rude awakening if the Wombats can bring their force to bear in a meaningful manner. But you see the RU251 out in the field at D7. That player, Raven, will be able to gain some information. Very, very important.
If Penta Sports really see that Kusok is in that position in the Object 140, they can take advantage of the lack of gun depression on that Russian Tier 10 medium tank. So maybe that's what's going to happen. And the STB will be pretty useless to help. Raven HR gets good early spots, a bit of damage exchanged between the two, but not too much. And I believe Raven is now safe, but the cap does get reset as Vale got spotted, and Coca-Cola does take him down. So Penta now forced to go forwards.
Bit strange there. Vale actually could have put himself in a spot that he wouldn't have been able to be shot so easily. But the problem is that I think Povel wasn't really dealt with. That threat wasn't addressed here, and Penta just let things happen. And they didn't know what Wombats were really doing in the meantime. So now they know Wombats are in the mid. They're going to push forward. They're going to try and isolate Povel because they know that most of his team is elsewhere. But they need to connect these shots here. The fast-firing TVPs just rattling shots one after another. Povel managed to bounce that one there from the dead zone. And a missed shot means that was really Penta's opening to wipe a tank off the map. Now that they've missed out on that, they have to grind this round out. And Wombats are well situated here to pincer them in towards that E and F line.
You can see the weaknesses of Wombats' lineup now because they didn't have the T110E5. There was no support for the SDB and no sustain for the SDB to kind of rely on. So that's a very nice pickup there for Penta Sports. They're definitely heading this round. They just need to get the positions which Wombats were in the beginning, get control over that middle area, and make sure that new multi doesn't go down.
There's a lot of damage coming through, but Coca-Cola seems to be the recipient of the brunt of it. He's taken 1,800 damage in a very short space of time, and Rage Potato was able to just tip him over the edge. But now, this is where things get a little bit messy. Bishop and Just Cause are on site. They're doing some work. Bishop up behind Rage Potato will have the final shot, and Just Cause has to get his reload on. 3 tanks left here for Penta Sports. As soon as I started seeing that pincer start to happen for Wombats, I definitely feared for the men in blue and black.
Yeah, I mean, Penta Sports went in with like 2 tanks, and then Wombats just jumped in on the opportunity to take them down. And now you can see that kind of reverse sweep happening here where Penta gets the overmatch. But of course, it might be a little bit too late. as Breakneck is coming off reload.
4v2 situation, Breakneck coming straight through with that TVP. 4 shots all can get rid of them in about 5 seconds flat. You can see exactly what a TVP can do when he does have the advantage or coming from behind. Perfect flanking tank. Killipit there does take the last shot from him. Tracked up as well. Frustrating scenario here for the FV215B, who again is going to have to just bow down and take it as Penta again fall down on the attacking side here. And match point now for the Wombats on tanks after that one. Fairly convincing for them.
Yep.
I mean, it was fairly drawn out, affair. But Vale got spotted. He got shot from a long way away in the middle. And then Wombats said, well, we just bought ourselves another 90 seconds, boys. Let's now go and put together this pincer and clean them up.
Yeah, but I feel like Penta had a definite advantage. I mean, they took down the STBs. They could just set up there in the defensive position, which is a good defensive position on any kind of map. And then, you know, they kind of threw away. They saw that Batchat in the middle on its own. They pounced on it with a couple of tanks. And then Wombats just had tanks in the middle anyway, so they just pushed in, got the overmatches. It was like a 3-for-1 trade-off. And then Penta tried to reply, but, you know, it doesn't work like that. You can't exchange when you lose 2 more tanks than the other team. You push your other tanks in, and then, you know, the tanks that were shooting your tanks in the beginning are now off reload and killing the ones that are trying to get the overmatches. So I felt if Penta had reset the fight a little bit, slowed it down, and then gone in, it might have been a different story. Had just gone for the exchanges. That might have been a different kind of situation. But, I mean, they just were too rushed there, and I felt they were a bit out of coordination with each other. But you can see Killipit, the FE215B, when it's used on this map, it's used pretty effectively. And Bishop and the Object 140, very effective indeed. But I think if we go to the second page, we'll get to see a story of why Penta got pretty far in this round. I mean, Povel, 1,100 damage, Coca-Cola, 1,500 damage. And remember that when you're on the winning team, there's like 600 damage or you know, let's say 2 shells on average, where that damage has not necessarily been crucial or had any kind of impact on the game.
Yeah, once the game is already done, the game is already done. You got a 4v2 and they have no shots left, and maybe that damage doesn't exactly always matter. So it's good to just read between the lines a little bit when we get our damage cap back there. But the story right now is a 4-1 scoreline. Wombats on tanks are on the precipice here of taking down old arch nemesis Penta here, of course, with this final round underway. Again, is going to be on Murovanka. Here's your tank picks, and Wombats, at least they have some respect for the 110E5 this time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a normal pickup. Both teams have gone for it. And to me, it looks like Wombats' defensive lineup is their attacking lineup and vice versa. So see if it works out for them. I mean, we've seen the successful T110E5 pushes into the western side. But I think for Penta, I mean, it's going to be very obvious of what Wombats want to do. That T110E5 is not effective basically anywhere else unless it's in a hold down position. So in classic Penta style, they're going to throw the spanner into the works and go aggressive towards that right side. And it looks like Wombats have thought of that and made a counter for it.
I've seen this kind of push before, actually. Back in the old days in the 754 format was fairly common here. Karitz, though, he's the one to set himself up in the forest here as well. So if there's any information to be gained, he's going to get it. But look at this, already the entirety of Penta Sports are lit. Their names are yellow, which means that their positions have been given away and radioed between the Wombats, so they know where they are. So the Wombats said, all right, bugger it. We're just going to go over towards that capture point number 1 and start this thing off here. You guys are so far out of position, it's not even funny. And they can get the attack started off. I mean, there is the 110E5 here. That is a threat in and of itself, but not when everyone else has already pushed up onto the hill. They're trying to deny Rage Potato that hull down advantage, and yeah, they've shoved him off. Cap underway.
Interestingly enough, Penta hasn't gone for what a lot of teams go for in this situation, which is just pushing straight through the middle. They've actually gone to try and reset the game a little bit by going to the normals defensive, standard defensive positions, default defensive positions. Breakneck does receive a shell, and you have got 2 roaming tanks, the Dead Zone and Raven HR there in the Batchat and RU251 that want to try and put the pressure on from many angles to make sure that those tanks in the BC line aren't simply getting the shots into the side of their advancing, decapping tanks.
Penta have to fully commit to this, 100% to get this reset. You can see Malin now goes out wide. He sees the tanks. He'll get the reset just at the last moment, but of course there will be fire coming back in response. Still, he's alive. Somehow against the odds, Malin still stands, and he will now get up close and personal with these Wombats and try and stop them from getting that capture done. Malin still lives. I don't know how it's possible, but he finally goes down, back and forth. You can see Just Cause has got himself behind enemy lines. He's causing big problems for Vale, who's going to go down. Great focus fire from the Wombats, taking out those key targets, and now they push on. They've managed to lure Penta Sports in, and now they're going for the kill. The hunted now becomes the hunter. As Raging Potato, he sees everything go by as he sits up on his perch on the hill. Don't really know how much help he can give to his teammates here, but at least Killapit was able to take care of Coca-Cola before he got to grips. And now Bishop is trying to get the finish. You can see Wombats still prioritizing going for those low health tanks to such a degree that Bishop has taken 2 or 3 shots from other tanks here just to get in that spot. A Raging Potato now will be surrounded out. It's a 3v3. Very, very close considering how the first few moments of this round went. And it's a bat chat for new multi-shot as well. That could be crucial. The man, I'm not sure if he's loaded or not here. We'll have to wait and see. Just Cause might fancy a challenge. He does bounce the first shot somehow, and he's going to get blown up here as well. Perfect stuff. Just Cause has to stay behind that water tower and hope for the support of his teammates here under a lot of pressure. But what a beautiful poke from Just Cause. You didn't see it on your screen, but he picked up Raven HR around the corner. And your multi-show, even with all the shells in the world, won't have enough time or teammates to finish this one off. He's now on reload, and Kusok is licking his lips.
I'm not sure what those two are really doing. I mean, they were coming off reload, but they were just staying in the same positions where they were killing creeps in the MX-3090. They should have just gone aggressive and taken care of the tanks that were pushing their T110E5.
There it is, game, set, match. It's Wombats and Tanks coming out with the first win of the evening, and a convincing one at that. So many votes were 5-3. People saying 5-3 is a possibility here. But at no stage, to be fair, did it really seem like Penta were confident, were settled, or even have a really solid idea of what to do after the first shots were fired.
Yeah, I felt like Hacky kind of summarized it. If you go into a game, I mean, we saw in that pre-game interview that it said, well, Wombats have a 100% win ratio against stuff. You can see, like, as soon as you have that kind of attitude going into a match, you got a good chance of losing it. You go round by round in a game like this, you got to go match by match and not consider what's happened in the past. It's in the past. We can see Oops. They don't really care if they're playing Kazna. They don't care who they're playing, what kind of pedigree they have. They just go into the match and give it their best, because you can see Penta and Himmelsdorf didn't really have anything apart from the standard tactics. Then we went on to Ruinberg, and then they showed some good prowess there on the attack, but couldn't quite put everything together. And then Murovanka, I mean, they got so close, but some miscommunication, some miscoordination. It would be interesting to hear what they have to say about that round. Cost them it. And then that last round, I felt like, they had Batch at a multi, and they had Raven HR on the RU251 just on their own, not really doing anything, not going forwards like Wombats would do, and providing some support for that poor T110E5, because that T110E5 was left alone, and you can see what effect he had on the match, but he just had no support once he was just left to die, basically.
And, well, kind of sad to say it, but it's a bit of a metaphor for how Penta's performance has gone today. Pretty lackluster from a team who's been just one of those Davids that can challenge the Goliath and sometimes even get the win. We think back to our Season 1 finals here. It was Penta with the story of the day with a great upset against Team Supreme. But right now, in pool play, seems to be a little bit average from them. I mean, both of these teams, in all fairness, were obviously dealing with other things, of course, overseas, had some games. The WCA and stuff like that as well. But it does seem like Wombats have returned and acclimatized better. And again, sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you can have too much respect for your opposition team. You don't need to remind yourself of statistics like 100% win rate. Not really necessary. But there we have it, Melly. That is all done and dusted. Penta, of course, falling down. But it's also good to see Wombats hit the ground running after their time in China.
I mean, we had roughly a handful of people voting for a 5-1 result, so at least some people expected it going it that way, and 53% is technically correct, because 53% are more than 50, therefore the vote went in favor of Wombats and Tanks, and the community was right. So congratulations. I must admit, I would have expected a much higher voting in numbers, at least, in the percentage numbers.
Yeah.
But yes, the next vote is open, so head over to facebook.com/WGLEU to get your votes in for the next matchup of the night, because the earlier you predict, the better your chances are of actually winning one of these 3 bonus codes containing a Großtraktor, Premium, and Gold, and a garage slot, of course. And as said, we love reading from you. Head over to Twitter, use the hashtag WGLEU as Carmen did, and he's really, really looking forward to the next matchup.
I'm looking forward to him getting wrecked as well, to be honest. So it's going to be good.
We're all in the same boat here, basically.
Well, to be fair, I mean, last time around, they actually had a good performance last week. Their last game against Rusty Roster was a 5-2, pretty convincing result for them. So, I mean, like we've already sort of alluded to, our next match is going to be Knekkebrot going up against Out of Range. plenty to prove for both these two teams, and we'll be seeing that game and all the rest when we do return from our break. And guys, during the break, hang around because we're going to be showing our recap from Tuesday's games 2 days ago. Stay tuned.
Welcome once again to the WGLEU. We are into match week 7, but I assure you action is nowhere near stopping. We have 3 great games coming up for you today.
So we can have a look at the table and you can see Kansas Crew still on top. They haven't really played since the break, but they're still somehow up there. 20 Rocks have had a great time. KBE, they look very good for the majority of the half of the season, but Wombats clearly stepped up after their loss against Synergy. They got Mucker off to the side as well, and he's going to be really important to the damage they do.
Now, McMoney is relatively far ahead of the curve here, maybe going a little bit early in this one. He might go down for absolutely nothing. He gets shredded there in the 2-5-1, but here comes the real metal from Utopia. They need to get the damage done, and pretty darn fast. Catches on the front lines, already swept aside by Shukyu, but Utopia are dwindling in HP. Can they keep hold of this? The back and forth comes in. The TVP is going in for the fire, but already the 140 gets shredded down by Ojek. The trades are coming out, but so far it looks like Strong are holding on relatively well. What can swing this?
But the STB of Mucker has to come in and actually do something. He's really got to start pushing his weight for his team, as Utopia have failed pretty parlously to make that push work for them.
Waffle Tiger going in on this. Papa Pavian's going to try and make a shot out of this one, and he does get it, but he's committing a hell of a lot in this tank for him. There's 3 there to try and challenge him down, so this might be a sacrifice they're going to have to make here, because who else can reset this? Shukyu does find 1. That's why the FP is going down, but Papa knows his days are numbered. He's done everything he can, but where is the rest of his team by this point? He needs a help here. Strong are dwindling on HP, though. They're down to very low numbers. Vast majority below 1k, excluding Steroids, who is pretty much been excluded from the fight now. Bishu trying to get into the battle here with Muka, trying to just corner an Aojek. They're going to pick that one up. That opens up a route to maybe try and pressure the cap, but going back in 1 by 1 is a dangerous game to be playing here, and it means Adesha could be in trouble.
Stefan is going to come off reload, but he won't be able to one-shot somewhere. Only 1,300 damage that TVP can do in one clip.
But the HP is starting to swing back again. Oops are not out of this. Bearing in mind, Elian again has fallen, but somewhere. Look at the consistency these shots coming through. There goes Eurofish. Okay, so now we're down to a 4v4. Now look at the HP. Oh, Stefan, no! Backs off the hill, gives it away. And my God, we're down to 3. Kazna, if you throw this...
And so good angles from Kazna right now.
Yeah, but Oops aren't giving up on this one, especially when that happens. Stefan gets caught, but now look at the damage they're receiving on the way through. That is the difference. That Schnitzel coming into the battle and finally doing what he's supposed to and being hammered down. But okay, Hyper falls. We're starting to lose some numbers here. Oops are down in HP though. Kazna holding onto this lead very marginally. Schnitzel getting challenged. Grosser doing everything he can at this point to keep himself relevant in this matchup. And Insane could take down Schnitzel here, removing that threat. This could still go so badly wrong. Vetso finds Grosser. That's the easy pickup that was waiting to happen. Insane on the move, trying to negate what can be done. They're both so low here, but there goes Schnitzel. It's down to 3. The reply comes in. 3v3 now.
Honey will just have a good track, but to be honest, Kansas got a lot of those tanks there without Oops knowing.
Yeah, I think one tank got spotted, but Hyber just gets melted down. He's a 1-shot-and-a-half. Insane deals with him swiftly, and let's remind ourselves, Oops have barely been spotted at this point. They're holding wonderful positions, supplemented by Honey being able to spot them out, and again, but Eurofish, Hyper, all pushing through. Great crossfire coming in. Eurofish takes more than he expected at this point. The HP is still in favor to Kazna, though, and the trades are not going in their way, though. Kazna losing out on the player here. Elian is sitting pretty, and that is about it, but Grosser on the move around, slowly encroaching in that IS-7. He's got a nice little lineup here, finally gets spotted. Elian gets one, but delivers back. It's a back-and-forth situation here, but 6.7k with Oops, and merely 4.8 for Kazna.
Yeah, Kazakuri has to take down Grosser as quickly as possible, but the Waffentrug is there in the background.
Oh, and you can hear that one coming through. Hyber goes down in a blink of an eye. Elian is still being a threat, though. Duck of Death falls. We're down to 4 tanks for Oops, and the HP is coming closer and closer here. Maybe a little bit overzealous, and Elian again finds another Vetso comes in. And suddenly, Oops aren't sitting so pretty. They had it all, and they might have just let this one slip. A little bit over-positioned there. No shots from Fussy yet to be put to place. Elian cautiously encroaching towards that northern side, though the spot comes out again. Fussy better be so ready for this. Another shot from Yizny and one more from Vetso. Piece by piece, they're doing the damage, and Elian wants to join in on it. And now suddenly, Oops may have let this one slip again. They were so far ahead, and Elian's taken away the hope that they had. It's down to Insane, and I thought the throws were real for Kazna, but Oops have just let this slip. Damnus is going to go. Where is Eurelfish in this one? He needs to get involved, but oh, the fire! Eurelfish gets shredded, as does Stefan. Insane took the damage early on, but it doesn't matter. Look who's taking the fire right now. The focus fire coming out from Oops is good, but can they keep Insane alive any longer? He's hindering anyone coming through to help. He's holding up Hyber, and he's creating time for Oops to do the damage. Vetso is down to nothing. He has fallen. Sure, Hyber returns the fight, but this is insane stuff from Oops. They've just kicked it up a gear. Now they're looking to take down Schnitzel as fast as possible. Honey now around the backside is going to do the damage towards Hyber, and Kazna are not looking pretty at this point. They need to get back into the fight, but Honey takes away Hyber. Schnitzel falls. It's down to 4 tanks now for Kazna crew. Prosto, though, on the push. The fire came out from Diodor then. It did not connect. The Annihilator is going to have to hold these guys back. Positive goes down. It's a 2v3. The Annihilator needs to live up to that name and then some. He is being a brute in this battle, though. Prosto is just not doing the damage, and he was the tank that was low. If Diodor can hit one shot here, it would be sublime. He needs to get into this battle and help him out. The Annihilator knows he hasn't got much time, but look at him. So much sustain here, but he doesn't land the shot.
He doesn't at all. I think Diodor might be off reload any second now. Can he land one of these shells? He needs to be able to make it 100% guaranteed that Tornado wins. It's first one found, 2 more to go.
And surely the Annihilator can't keep withstanding this. Where is the support from Diodor? The Annihilator is going 1v3 right now, and there we go, it comes in the end. So guys, if you've loved the content, do make sure you get up to date on all the social media channels, hit that follow button below, and make sure you tune in on Thursday.